Hi, everybody. This is Kat Day, and we are here with SPM TV, and we have a special guest, Emily Duddy and Garrett. Take it away.
Hi, Emily. How you doing tonight?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
That's doing good. That's doing good. So you're in New York right now, yeah?
I am in New York. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
currently at my house in upstate New York.
Okay.
But I also live in New York City and Brooklyn, and we go back, my family and I go back and forth. So we're in the city, New York City during the week, up here on the weekends. We were up here full time during the pandemic, which we felt very grateful for. I'm considering, obviously, things were kind of crazy in New York. You
Of
can see I
course.
have my gold crown behind me, which I'm very grateful to
Yeah, you
have.
just got that too recently, about a year ago, yeah?
About a year ago. Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
towards the end of 2020. Yeah, we originally had a smaller, like an 8-foot bar table in here that I played on at the beginning of the pandemic. But once we realized that it was going to be like in for the long haul, we were able to switch it out. Brand, like, really great gold crown for, and Pro Billiards did that from Michigan. That came, took the bar table for trade, and brand new cloth, tight pockets, great for training. So
Yeah, that sounds great. Now,
yeah.
when you compete, do you compete on Brunswicks as well?
Yeah, so the WPBA Women's Tour has been diamond pool tables now for gosh, about 12 years, the most of the time I've been on tour. So
Yeah.
what I'll do is before, maybe the week before an event, I go out of my way to go to a pool hall that has diamonds.
Yeah.
And we have them in New York. And then, when I was living in Jersey a long time ago, I would go down to Edison because they had a diamond. So I try to get time in before. I'm obviously, like, can go back and forth, but
Yeah.
my pool hall, Amsterdam, and the city's all Brunswicks. So, they play a little different. I try to get ready for the event.
How would you say that they play differently?
Yeah, great question. I would say the shelves on the diamonds are deeper than the Brunswicks, and the way the pockets are cut, they like the pockets are also like they kind of spit out balls. They're more like, it's like kind of a
Yeah.
tighter, maybe a snooker table, like straight edge.
Yeah.
So right, when you're playing on diamonds, there's certain shots that you really need to, like, hit well. If you're down along the rail, you kind of can't really cheat the pocket like you can on a Brunswick sometimes. Brunswicks, play wide as well. Also, diamonds, they bank short, right? So that's always something that you kind of have to adjust to when I get to an
Right.
event. Yeah, when I get to a pro event and I have kind of like the first day or half a day to practice and warm up, shoot a lot of bank shots.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Why don't you tell me about the WPA?
Yeah, so the WPBA is been one of the longest running pool tours actually in history. We started in the late 70s. It stands for Women's Professional Pool Association, right?
Yeah.
And it started in the late 70s by some really amazing pioneer women that were, really wanting to compete and couldn't really, get in with the men and didn't really have a platform, but they had a lot of like great players and women that really wanted to have something for their own,
Of course.
at the time. You can imagine, it was harder than ever for women to
Oh,
go into
yeah.
play with men on tour, things like that. And so, as the tour progressed, we got to the 90s where the WPBA was really hit one of its like a huge time, successful time,
Right.
Tons of tournaments, 10, 12-year events a year, everything on ESPN. That's when you saw the battles between Allison Fisher and Karen Core,
Yeah.
Jeanette, really making her name for herself as the Black Widow. Just a lot of really great TV exposure on ESPN and everything. Then that kind of kept going for the 2000s. And so I feel like the recession in 2008 really had an impact on the casinos, a lot of the money they were putting into our events. Then things started to kind of shift to social media, more away, like TV, things like that. So, pool kind of had to, kind of took a hit, and we've been
Yeah,
having.
took a reevaluation is kind of what it was. I think what it was is because a lot of people, instead of socializing to go out, because that's what pool was before social media, it was a way for people to socialize. It was a little bit different than a bar atmosphere because it allowed people to compete against one another. And I mean, there's some people out there that are more competitive than others. It's just a part of life. So it allowed people to get together and be around one another. But when social media came out, it took a real big hit because the fact that instead of having to go out, everybody kind of got lazy and just sat in front of their computer and cell phone and whatnot.
Yeah, all very true. I do
Now-
think another big factor was that the marketing of like marketing of companies, of things in general, shifted very quickly. So a lot of these casinos that would have these big events for us, they were all across the country. A lot of them in the Midwest, things like that. You know, one of the greatest exposures for them were having an event, like having a WPBA event in their arenas, right? They get exposure on ESPN, and a lot of people would be able to, you know, see them. And so they put a lot of money into every event. That's how we were able to like maintain production value on ESPN, maintain a certain level of product, right? So once that kind of started to shift, things became more online, things became more internet-based, you know, that kind of fell away a little bit. So I started on the WPBA, officially got turned pro in 2010, but I was just trying to qualify in, let's say, 2003. And during that time, you know, women's pool was still like really gigantic. All of our regional events were huge, right? 50 to 60 women trying to get that qualifier spot to get on tour. You know, we still had an amazing calendar, a lot of great venues. And then, you know, I got to 2010, we still had a lot of events. Slowly over to 2010 to 2020, we were in up and down, and, you know, still hanging in there, which is amazing because a lot of, you know, tours have folded or things like that. It's still a business, you know, and over the last, I would say, few years, right before the pandemic hit, we had a really great calendar, you know, like that set that unfortunately at the time got canceled or rescheduled. I'm happy to say that this year we have 10 events, which is gigantic.
Almost once a month.
Yeah, almost once a month. Yeah. So they're starting a little later, so we're kind of doubling up a lot of months.
Now you said regional, so this is this all across the United States?
Yeah, so at the time, the regional system would be, you know, you play in your different region, and then you'd have to win a qualifier into the WPBA Open, for example, right? Or you would finish top in your region. So like for me, I finished in the Northeast, right in the New York area, but it was like New York, Pennsylvania, like the Northeastern tour. Then you would go at the time and play in the regional tour championships. So we would all come from all over the country. You know, it would happen in a different place every year. And either they used to do just the top finisher would get all the events invited for the year, but they changed the format. So 2010, like the top 9 finishers would get their tour card for the year, right? So you'd either qualify with one event or regionally and then nationally. And, you know, I had a breakthrough tournament kind of like 2010 to get me that tour card. I, you know, finished 5th and, you know, got rookie of the year, which was exciting for me. And now, you know, now we're getting back into the swing of things. WPBA also is the primary predominant ranking for international invites, right? Which is really, so that's a big part of it. As you move up the ranks and the pro WPBA, you become exempt, right? So the top 32 are exempt. They get automatic invites into everything. Then the top 16 get seeds and buys, and they get like seeded away from each other, the rankings. Then international invites goes down the USA players or the Canadian players, and they get invited to World Championships.
Now, when you said international, are we only inviting the United States and Canada, or is it overseas as well?
Yeah, great question. So the WPA, you know, does the invites for the World Championships usually, or you know, depending on the event. So they'll do their different countries, right, based on rankings or points through them. Then for the from the WPBA sends their top USA Canadian players, right? They do pay based on our rankings as well, but they'll invite the different countries, and then you know we go from there. So
is that your Fargo rating?
Say again?
Is that your Fargo rating?
So it's not actually. Fargo is, has been around maybe the last, 5-10 years or so, I would say.
Right.
But
Yeah.
really heavily the last 5 years kind of coming into its own. I think Fargo's a great system. I think it's also really collecting enough data. At this point, it's growing stronger and stronger to give us
Right.
more accurate, ratings of everybody. The ranking for our tour and a lot of tours, right, it's like internal. So every event you get a certain number of points based on how you finish. And it's the last 6 events that gives you your ranking on tour, right?
Okay.
Now, this year it's changing because we have 10 events. So all of the events for this year will determine the end of your ranking, right?
Right.
And
Right.
an end of your ranking is really what gives you international invites, your exempt status, your top 16 status, all those things.
Who's running this?
Yeah, so the board of directors right now is Dean Rossler, who is the president. Then we have great other board members who include Lori John. She's a Hall of Fame player. We have Renee Lyle, who used to be the president of the APA. Let's see, we have Patrick, and we have a couple others, board of directors that, let's see. Oh, Angela Janik just joined the board recently. She's great for the game and, does a lot of online stuff. She recently did some of our streaming, so the board is comprised of, we vote them on, and they have different skill sets they bring to the table. We usually have a lawyer. We usually have, different, we have our president, vice president, secretary, all that stuff. I was on the board of directors, let's see, 2018 for about 6 months. And it was a great experience. I was also running our social media at the time. I left on good terms, but it wasn't necessarily the best for me at the time. But I love the WPBA, and
Right.
I'm a supporter of them in the tour.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. That's great. Now, why don't you tell me a little bit about your sponsors?
Yeah, that'd be great. So, pool sponsorship, as any pool player will know, or any business, is a very challenging endeavor. And it's a very kind of like hodgepodge, it's more like we're all like in this together, and pool is still growing so much that we support each other in ways. A lot of sponsorship is equipment based. I have some sponsors. So let's start with Jacoby Cues is just built me a gorgeous new playing cue that we designed. They're a great company. Personally, I prefer to support custom cue makers, design something one of a kind, really represent a smaller business with a kind of like, as opposed to, I used to play with Predator a long time ago, and they're a great company with produce great cues, but I prefer, building my own. So Jacoby Cues, then Tome Chalk, Tome Chalk, another great sponsor of mine. I've been playing with Tome for a long time, so I use their chalk. Their tips are fantastic. So they're a great company that represents me. A pool hall, I would say you have your different categories as a pool player, right? So if you're cute, if you're chalk. My pool hall is Amsterdam Billiard Club. I've been playing there for 15 years. So they support me. Yeah, I'm so lucky. I moved to New York from California to pursue professional pool out of college. And I moved to New York because it had one of the best pool scenes in the country. And I really, I knew that if I moved there and made it there, that I would really do well on tour. So I moved when I was 23, and Amsterdam, really embraced me from the beginning. I think, they saw how like hardworking and enthusiastic I was, and determined that I was. So, what they do for me is it's like, free pool time. I represent the pool hall. I bring them, I've filmed a lot of the TV shows I've been on, or film any kind of opportunity for a photo shoot I do there. In return, I give lessons, I do leagues, I do a lot of corporate parties. So it's a really, I represent them on tour and try to get their name out there.
Right. Now, I know that you also host a lot of tournaments as well. And you're the tournament director. What's the biggest tournament the tournament that you've ever hosted? And what are some of the challenges with that?
Yeah, so let's see. I used to be more of a director in the beginning of my career. You know, I was the manager at Campbell Billiards in California from, let's see, I worked there from 2003 to like 2007. So when I was manager there, I was like tournament director for a lot of our local events, our house events, and then we would do like kind of a super tournament, you know, where people would qualify through that. So then when I moved to New York, I do run like mini tournaments at the pool hall, and you know, of course, I still have that skill set, but I had to devote a lot of my time to practicing and competition and training to become a professional. But I do love running tournaments. I would say that a big part of it is, you know, the organization of it. I'm also an event manager for corporate catering in New York City. So I really, I think I thrived because of just maintaining, you know, it was like, you know, organizing players, getting paid entry fees, you know, also, you know, just or like
you run some pretty big tournament brackets that I know. I've heard, would you say 128? Is that what you run?
Yeah, again, I haven't run any in years. But at the time when I was at the pool hall, it would be up to 128 sometimes. Yeah.
Oof. That's incredible. I know, because a lot of the smaller ones, I mean, even in my area, people will,
like, I would say you have to have a really great team behind you. At the time, you know, we had wonderful volunteers and employees and people that would help me run the charts and collect the money, you know, and kind of like I could delegate down through my team. Another extraordinary, and I helped a little bit, but again, the last 10 years for me, I've been more focused on a player and representative of pool and the TV shows. But like the Predator Tour is, unfortunately went under, I mean, or had to temporarily stop after the pandemic, but they were, talk about like unbelievably impressive events. You know, they would for multiple tournaments going with over 100 players, and that was Tony Robles, his wife Gail Robles, you know, William Finnegan used to be a part of it, Julie Haw. They had this amazing team, and when you would get there, like it was so impressive because it was just like everyone doing their part. That's the biggest thing for tournaments, and I think you have to be prepared to have everyone doing their part, and then it's like you have to live at the pool hall for 2-3 days. So you get there at like 9 in the morning and you leave at like 1 or 2 in the morning. You know? And
they just did the Jacoby Open here in a town called Nakusa, which is where Jacoby runs their shop out of, and they had, I think, 20 tables there this year. And for you know, for places like what you're compared to, it was a small event, but they had like teams, they had singles, they had youth, a youth division of that. And it's cool because I got thrown in the mix there, and they were able to have one parent, one child, and they played teams like that, and they did alternating shots, and it was pretty fun to work in that environment, to be creative enough to with your leaves and you know how to get around the table like that. So it was fun. Why don't we take a break?
That's a great idea, but like child, like, you know, parent-child scotch doubles. There you go. That's brilliant.
Right. Let's take a break real quick and take a break from our sponsors. And we will be back in just a second.
And we're back.
So
that place was fantastic. I want to go there.
Oh,
it is
amazing.
It's a really impressive place. Alberto has been there for a long time, and with that, he supports a lot of the industry and a lot of people out of Texas. And he's doing a lot. I think he's been doing this since '72. I remember him saying somewhere along the lines.
They've been in business. They just celebrated their 70th anniversary.
Wow.
Yeah.
They've got about everything imaginable you need in that store.
That's great. That's like a flagship of like.
Yeah. They also do drop shipping, and they do quite a bit for the industry, but centralized out of Texas.
Yeah. So really quick, before I forget, I had a couple more sponsors. neglect them. Speaking of sponsorship, so actually the shirt I'm wearing is a great new sponsor of mine called In the Zone Sportswear.
Yeah, I've heard of
Right.
them.
And so I had to wear them to show it off a little bit. They've been creating such top-notch stuff for certain players, but they turned this logo of mine. This is a photo of me in the silhouette to
Yeah.
create the logo of it, right? And I've got my Billiard Bombshell in the back. So I think I love like all the different clothing options for pool players now. I think we're
Right.
finally getting some really high quality professional stuff. I mean, there's been great companies that have been around for a long time. Hustling has been an amazing like company that's around forever. And
If you can ever get a hold of
Tony
Tony,
Hargan, he's amazing. His company's great.
if you could ever get a hold of him, he's one of the hardest people in the industry to get a hold of.
He's a Californian like me, and so I grew up like he's known me since I was like 18.
Yeah.
He used to be a professional football player.
Yeah.
Really amazing guy. But yeah, he's like I feel like he's always at trade shows and things, so he's probably just on the road.
Yeah.
Right? So that's probably why. And then Littman Lights, who I'm gonna really quickly show. This light is amazing. The Littman Lights. And you can see they engraved it for me, Billiard Bombshell.
Oh, nice.
So they are an amazing light company that is out of Oregon. And again, small businesses, these companies, it's so hard to make a really great quality product and get it out there. And pool is like, there's a lot of competition. So, I represent company or try to support companies that I really believe in, that really work hard and I have personal relationships with.
Right.
And then my biggest of all the years has been actually Gary Borge Dental. He's a dentist out of California, and he has sponsored. He used to sponsor Liz Ford, another pro player. He gives a lot of money into local tennis and baseball, like little leagues in California. He's just a really big sports enthusiast, and he loves pool. So he's been one of my sponsors for 8 years. 8 years he's been supporting me. He's helped me travel internationally with international airfare, all my entry fees for the pro tour, which are $500. It's a big, that's a big expense for us. So, if you can find, like, if they're hard to find, but we're so grateful for you sponsors. And, it's a really important partnership for us.
Well, the hard part about getting sponsors is you not only have to be a good player, that's actually a small portion of what you do, but you have to have a great public personification, and you have to be able to have that personification and run with it and be professional everywhere you go, and not not be bad in front of the camera type of thing. You know what I mean? And you need to take time and show the people who you're sponsored by and what they do and kind of what you're repping for them,
Right.
So a lot of people don't understand that. They just think that because they're a great pool player that, they're going to get all these sponsors and stuff. And there's a whole other backstory to it, because they're representing you and you're representing them. And it's definitely a two-way street.
Agreed. Definitely. And I think, pool players, what's interesting, pool players, like it's an individual sport more than anything, right? So I love team pool. I did win a national team title with my women's team, Kiss of Death, in 2009, a huge moment of my career, but for the most part, we play individually. And what that means in a lot of ways is that, we're very independent people. A lot of us have big personalities, right? You kind of have like a lot of us, have a confidence or, an ego per se. And so,
you have to. You absolutely have to.
Yeah, completely. I think, professional athletes in general, you need to have that. And we're walking the line of like having to have that enough swag and confidence to win an event, but also be respectful of our other competitors and everyone around us. Right. And I think that, when it comes to business and partnership and things like that, pool players really need to be team players. And that a lot of them struggle with that because they're so used to like doing their own thing, being on the road, like taking care of themselves. And it's like, well, it's a lot easier if you can like have people supporting you, right? That means that you have to like really step up and be professional in that way.
Right.
Right.
Right. Yeah, no, that's totally it. The other thing with that is that there are so many people out there that are trying to get the same sponsors, and the pool is not that big. And that's why you see people like yourself that are going outside of the industry to find companies that are willing to support them, that are not directly billiard related.
Agreed. And I do believe that we are embarking on a new era of pool. I really feel that. I feel this, I've been in this game, for 20 years, and I've seen it, the ups and downs, and, I've seen bonus ball, and I've seen the IPT. I was there when that happened, and seemed so exciting. And then like collapsed. I was just starting to compete when that was happening. But I feel like Matchroom's a game changer. Predator, these things, like we're really coming into our own with this kind of level of production. I think you guys are doing a great job. I think it's taking it just the next level, right? So we have the podcast, we have the videos, we have interviews, we have like footage, we have these events at this high production level. And
Right.
I think it's going to bring in more and more outside sponsorship, which is the only way for pool to really be like other sports, right? Because if we've all been so reliant on these smaller companies that we love representing, but none of them have the financial capacity to pay for
to take it to that really, really huge level. We brought up that you were sponsored by Jacoby, and I work with them pretty fluently. And they're a small company, but they put out a lot into the industry. So they're not only sponsoring kids, but they are people, but they also really take a pride in sponsoring the youth and helping them. I know Brandon runs a youth league out here, and it's fun to see all the kids come around and watch the progression from where they started to along the way and along their journey. And to find companies like that, we need to find that type of family atmosphere, but in a corporate company that's willing to take pool and watch it from where it's at and progress to where they want it to be. And we need to have a better game plan, in my opinion. So it's all a part of how we promote it. And I think that people like you are doing a really great job. I want to say thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for everything you do as well. I think the next generation and the younger players are where our focus should be. And
Come here.
Yay, Willow.
This is Willow. This is my daughter Willow. Everybody who doesn't know yet, here, get your face in there. There we go. There we go. Yeah, she just turned 10 a little bit ago, and she is definitely my sidekick here. She's with everything that I do. She's right there with me. She's the one that keeps on pushing me to get up and really do what I do.
Yeah. I have two teenage stepkids, and they're not necessarily pool players, but they're musicians and they're into so many other things. And I think, I started playing pool when I was 8 years old. My dad started teaching me, and it's such a big reason why I was able to, compete and take it seriously in college and really make something of it. So we have things like the BEF, the Billiard Education Foundation, which is fantastic. We have, little things here and there. And I remember I went to an event, a WPBA event, like a few years before right before the pandemic. And they had, they were like, oh, the kids are coming from the local youth leagues. And I was like, could you guys want to participate? And I just love kids. I'm like, yes, please, can't wait. So sure enough, the next day, and I was expecting like a handful, but we walked into this like Louisiana pool hall in the back. It was like 60 kids, like 60. And they were so, oh my God. I was like, what? And they were blown away. They were so excited. It was like me, Vivian Villarreal, like Brittany Bryant, like really like, kind of fun, kind of outgoing professionals. And they had they're cute. It ranged from like 6 years old to like 18. And they had t-shirts and they had all these things that we were signing. And I was playing them challenge matches going through and taking photos and like signing autographs for them and having them. And I talked about how when I was a young girl watching Vivian on ESPN and idolizing her, and now I'm her competition. It's like so important. And they had to drag me out of that pool hall to go to the airport.
So
And I
let
was
me
like,
ask you this.
no, there's more kids I haven't played yet.
We've talked about your past and how you got started and when you went pro and your career in the WPBA and what's next for you? Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
Great question. So my goal is to really kind of crack into like the top 5 on tour, really. So, people don't like it's something like pool or any kind of really high level activity or profession. It takes decades to really get there. They don't realize that, at the Allison Fishers and Kelly Fish and Karen Court were playing like professional snooker when they were like 12,
Yeah.
So, I started competing, when I was 19, I did well, I started doing well, but so I've been professional for 12 years and I've been very happy with my progression up the ranks. My top rank on tour has been number 9, which I'm very proud of. I'm currently ranked number 12. And what's happened for me the last like 4 or 5 years was I started training with, a new coach. I trained with like 2 amazing coaches, Stu Matana and Mike Napolitano. So Mikey Naps, we call him, and he was one of Kelly Fisher's first coaches when she first came to the US. So what started happening is after my training, years of training with them, 4 or 5 years ago, I started actually like really breaking through and started to beat a lot of players that I would always lose to, like Ava Lawrence, like Helena Thornfeld, rest in peace, I love you. Like all of these girls that were like around.
Don't stop until your rivals are your idols.
Completely. So now the top 5, like the ones that I've like grew up idolizing, right? The ones that grew up idolizing, the Hall of Famers, like the amazing, just Allison Fisher, Kelly Fisher, my best friend Jennifer Beretta, like these top Hall of Famers. Every time I play them, the score gets like closer and closer, and my goal now is like, I know that I know that my game is there. I know mentally that I'm there, and I'm just ready to kind of like settle in and start holding my own with them. And, I feel like
once such a mental game, it really is.
Pick one of them off,
then
I'll like start falling like dominoes, know? So
who's ranked number 1 in the world right now in the world's in the women's division?
So on our tour, and I don't know if she's number 1 WPA because it's a little different ranking, but Kelly Fisher is number 1. And she's just been, she's been a force forever, but especially like the last couple years, she's just like, left and right. Jennifer Beretta is number 2 on our tour. Obviously Allison's right up there.
You're pretty close with her, aren't you?
Jennifer Beretta or Allison? Jennifer Beretta is my best friend. Yeah. So she's amazing. We've been friends for 15 years since I moved to New York. I have an amazing story about our friendship and how it developed. Maybe for another time, but
we'll bring her back on for sure.
Yeah, I love that. So Jen she was my maid of honor at my wedding. I got married in September. So
congratulations.
Thank you so much. So I love Jen, and I think what's interesting about the last 10-15 years is that social media has changed the game with live streaming, right?
Yeah.
So imagine in the 90s and the early 2000s, there was no streaming in the middle of a tournament. Like you're not watching people as they're up and comers, as they're competing, right? It would be like when you're like there at ESPN, like you're like ready, and that's all they see is you on ESPN. They don't see the blood, sweat, and tears of you losing.
No, of course not.
Through, right?
And there's so much of that the people don't see on the back end. All they see is the guts and the glamour, and you rivaling it out on a 3-day tournament where you're saying you have to be there at 9 a.m. and you're not leaving until 1 a.m. and that's a long day. And especially when you're around your peers and you're around what you're doing and what you love so much, it is a long day. But I think
it's important to like take it in stride. For us newer players, last 10 years, there's matches from me on YouTube that are like 13, 14 years old where I was like a rookie. I was like in my early 20s. I was a hot shot. I hadn't done all the training that I do now, and people like go on there and be like, oh, it's like, no, that's how I played 15 years ago. Okay. Yeah. So there's all these like fragments of our careers, and of course people love to get on there and like like judge you from that, where it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
a 1%. But I think it's like I think it's a huge variable for a new thing that competitors have to go through, like in all different sports, that we're being analyzed and criticized while we're grinding, while we're going on our way to the top,
Right.
and so, like I feel like it pushes me, to work harder and to be better and all these things. But I look at it as like a challenge that for myself, that I'm on camera a lot. I end up on streams a lot,
Yeah.
and it's, other players hate it. They want to avoid it. It's hard. I have a love-hate relationship with it, but it makes me stronger, right? Because of the nerves and everything else.
Oh,
But,
yeah.
so I'm determined to kind of
Hold on.
overcome that.
I'm totally geeking out on your background here. Do you have a custom jukebox in the back of your pool table?
Do I have a what? Custom?
A jukebox? Is that what that is?
It is. That is a jukebox. So this room is pretty like insane, actually. So that is my husband's. Also, you can see Jack. How like
of course,
from
Jack.
before Christmas. Where's Jack? There's Jack from Nightmare Before Christmas. We're big Halloween people around here.
Oh, of course.
So there's that, and yeah, this pool room has been my big project during the pandemic. So I didn't like lose my mind. So I was able to work on it. But yeah, I also have one other amazing thing. So this is a personalized Delta 13 rack that I used on the Harry Connick Jr. show when in 2017. And I got Harry Connick one of these also when I taught him a trick shot, and Delta 13 was able to do that. So yeah, a lot of personalized awesome stuff around here. I'm very lucky. So the other thing that I think I find fascinating about, where I'm at personally, is that pool is such a game of longevity compared to other sports, right? It's a game of knowledge and training, and it's one that you usually start really, depending on when you started, right? And you started competing, right? It takes decades. So I turned pro at 26 years old, I'm 38 years old. And I really feel like the last, few years for me, I've really hitting my stride as a mature, seasoned pool player. Right. And in other sports, you play young, you max out, you have to retire at 25, 30 because of injuries, where pool, it's like accumulation of knowledge, getting comfortable in the arena, learning that how to beat professionals that you've idolized, for your whole life.
Years.
Things like that, I'm excited for the next stage of my career, because I feel really settled and mature. So. Right.
Yeah. Well, that's where you got to be. And it seems like that a lot of people kind of hit their stride right around this time, right around this age, is early, early 40s, late 30s type of thing is where they really get up and get going out there. So on that note, let's call it an evening. You got to get out of here, and so do we. So we will talk to you soon. We'd love to have you back on the show. And please, guys, don't forget to share this everywhere you can. There's a bunch of different social media outlets out there, and we're all about trying to get exposure here. So let's get that going, get it shared. On that note, we're going to say goodbye, and thank you for being a part of the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Garrett and Catherine.
You're great, Emily.
Before we go, I have to give a huge shout out to you guys, Sneaky Beat Mafia, because you've been really working hard, so hard lately. Garrett, you've been out here grinding for at least a decade, right? When did you find Sneaky Beat
10
Mafia?
years. 10 years. 10 years. Okay. So I started Sneaky Beat Mafia in 2012 on January 31st. So we just celebrated our 10-year anniversary, and we're hitting our stride. So just like you were saying. So yeah.
And you guys have also been supporting me. You've been hired me to write pool articles, which I absolutely love doing. And I between all my schedule, I find time to write. And I love doing that. So thank you so much for allowing me, the opportunity to do that. And thanks for having me on the show.
All right. You have a good one, Emily. We'll talk soon.
Have a great night.
All
You
right.
too. Bye.
Thanks, guys.